Hello, Pini. Thanks for taking the time to join me today. At Net Zero Compare, we speak with leaders working at the intersection of technology, sustainability, and large-scale transformation. Your work at Resync focuses on guiding enterprises through the shift from cloud native to AI native, which is a major structural change for any organization. So, not just a technical one. Our audience includes decision makers who are trying to understand what real AI adoption actually looks like in practice and how to avoid a common pitfall. Today, I'd like to explore your thinking behind AI native transformation, how companies can build the right foundations, and what it means for operational resilience, sustainability, and long term value. Let's dive in. So, you've worked across cloud native transformations for many years. What made you shift focus to AI native transformation and eventually co-found Resync?
First, thank you for the invite. Great to be here. Yes, so before Resync, I have built another company called Container Solutions, which was a cloud native company, basically building large cloud native systems. What we have seen working with a lot of enterprises and smaller companies was massive amount of waste. So basically, when you have a typical cloud native system, you would often find only 20% or even 10% utilization of the hardware. So when we finished with Container Solutions and we're starting a new company, the idea was actually to focus on reducing waste, to increase sustainability, improve sustainability, and reduce carbon emissions and other types of waste. It didn't really work out in a sense of sustainability is not really ready to be a sustainable business. And also what we realized was that actually it's hard. It's not enough to reduce the emissions, but it's much more important to actually figure out how to eliminate them altogether. So it's not really about incremental improvements, but it's much better to focus on like drastic innovation or the big next thing. And then it also becomes better for business, but it also actually using AI or moving to AI and helping companies to adopt it successfully, we can actually have much more significant impact on sustainability while building much more innovative business.
Thanks for the clarification. Actually, it makes a lot of sense because a lot of leaders feel the shift, but sometimes they don't always know how to define it clearly, I think.
Yeah, the sustainability itself is not a good business because there's not a lot of pressure. There's not a lot of stick or carrot from the government or from the market to encourage companies to actually act. So there is a need for reporting, and there are all kinds of things that the governments are forcing companies to do, but there's no strong commercial need for companies to actually do sustainability. So in this sense, I believe that if there is no strong stake, then there has to be technology that helps us to actually do better in terms of sustainability without spending money or effort on it. Like today, electric cars, I have an electric car and I have it not because I'm saving the world, but because it's better than petrol car. So it's much better to create technologies that are greener, and then it becomes no-brainer, because forcing people into paying for altruistic reasons is not a sustainable way of transforming.
Got it. Okay, so now let's define AI native. Many companies are still trying to make sense of what actually AI native means. So how do you define AI native in a practical, operational way for large organizations?
So first, I think it's important to understand that AI is not just addition of AI to existing structure. It's transformational in the sense that the technology drives also organizational change. There is this principle called Conway's law that says that organizational structure and architecture of software are tightly coupled. So basically, your architecture will resemble your organizational structure. The AI native architecture, which is not yet well defined, but it's definitely going to be different from cloud native architecture. So cloud native is microservices, containers, and all kind of continuous delivery. There are all kind of principles that drive cloud native architecture. and not defines organizational structure like team topologies. So something similar is happening in AI native. It's not yet well defined because we don't yet know for sure how those systems will look like. It will change the organizations altogether, from the way we sell things to the way we manage the teams and eventually to architecture. So it's important that AI native is treated as a transformational change that will affect all parts of the organization. Systems need to be designed accordingly. It needs to be, right now, there is a lot of fear among the people that they will be replaced or their work will change too much. And so we need to invest a lot into education and we still need to figure out how the architecture, like technical architecture of those systems will look like. Because more and more companies using AI to write code, to run systems, to develop new technologies, and this is definitely not something that people are used to do right now. So we really need to treat it as transformational change, but we don't yet for sure know how it will look like eventually.
Right. Plus, this distinction between tools and architecture is something that, to be honest, I haven't been thinking about before. Now, let's talk about cloud native versus AI native. So, your book argues that simply adding AI on top of existing cloud native systems won't work. So, what are the most common misconceptions companies have when trying to make the jump?
First, I mean, the most obvious thing is that it's just another tool, but it's not just another tool because the architecture and the way of working is changing. For example, right now, our team and me personally, we are doing a lot of things using AI. And before AI, you would think for a while, and then you would do something that is not a lot of thinking involved. Right? For example, if you write code, you plan how to write the code, and then you actually write the code. If you write, I did finish a book, so I used a lot of AI. So when you use AI, you sort of think of some new ideas and then you actually type them in. So the actual typing is not thinking intense. So what happens is that in the past, you would think for a bit and then you would spend 1 or 2 or 3 hours typing or doing some other stuff. Right now, it's all removed by AI. So you think, then you ask AI to basically write the code. After 20, 30 seconds, you have 1,000 lines of code and everything sort of resolved. You need to understand what happened. You need to think again. This creates entirely different dynamics of working with the systems. So basically, we really need to still figure out how we work with these tools. What is already fairly clear is that AI is not entirely replacing people, but it's augmenting them. So we need to figure out what is the most powerful thing we can do with AI and how it can help us. And at the end, it all depends on data, on clean, well-managed version, and without good data at the end, all exercise of creating AI systems is not going to be very successful.
Got it. Now let's talk about organizational architecture. So we often emphasize organizational architecture as the biggest barrier, not actually the technology. So what does a well-designed organization look like for an AI native environment?
So this is again a bit of a warning that we don't actually know yet, right? Because this is new set of technologies and we're still inventing the ways of working. But what's clear is that if in the past, for example, in cloud native world, we worked in microservices. So because the scale was so massive that we wanted to split the scale horizontally, meaning that we want to sort of chop the application into smaller pieces and put different teams to build different pieces. And then we need to enable those teams to work independently. So for that, we created microservices, containers, cloud, team topologies to create this individual small units of work that are not tightly coupled to each other. This is a perfect setup for horizontally scalable large systems like Google, Facebook, or whatever else. So what's happening with AI is potentially we can rely on AI to build much bigger systems with our assistants. So we only need to express our intent. and make sure that the result is ethical and correct based on our intent. So we actually rely on AI to build those systems. So we don't really need small independent teams because that actually creates silos that actually goes against the principle of shared data and shared way of working in a way. So I don't really know how it will work for sure, but there are these principles of sort of fluid work networks or small ad hoc teams that coming together with different ideas, creating something, delivering it, and then moving on, sort of splitting and then connecting into different teams. So these are all very new ideas, and I'm not really sure how it will develop in the future.
We'll be able to see probably soon, sooner or later.
I
So
hope
the
so.
only
I hope so. Yeah.
I hope that too. I'm just thinking because I thought that clear roles and clear accountability, from my perspective, I thought these were like the main two missing pieces. But also, clear roles sometimes can lead to silos that you mentioned.
It's true. So what we really want is people who have a good idea and they sort of, writing piece of code or expert knowledge is not a big thing anymore because that's what AIs are good for, what LLMs are good for. Finding patterns of writing code or creating visuals. So there are all kind of tasks that LLMs are very good at. So you need people who are not just possessing the knowledge in their heads, but they have initiative and ideas to get to the next level. And very important point with AI is that they can contribute their knowledge and ideas very quickly. They don't need to stay in the same team for a year or for 2 years. Because whatever was built in a small team in a year now can be built maybe in few weeks. So then after this project is finished, maybe they can move to the next team. Yeah, so it's, I think well-defined roles probably will be less important than in the past and more ability to work with AI and the ideas, the creativity, probably that's more important.
Now it's clear to me. Thanks for that comment. You've also already mentioned the importance of data. And as we know, AI native transformation depends heavily on reliable data. So when you assess companies, what are the clear indicators that their data foundations are not ready?
So first, of course, poor quality of data. This is the most common thing. I mean, you come to a company and then they say, well, we're not sure. Like that's a great sign that it's probably not good, right? If they're not sure, it's very sure that this is not good. Very rarely you would find today any sort of tracking or uh, figuring out where the data, how the data was created, any sort of versioning. It's very uncommon today. It's very advanced. And also there is a lot of silos. Like the data is stored in different places and not sort of normalized. And in a way, cloud native actually drove this kind of silo approach to create microservices. There was a clear direction to put data inside the microservice and create ownership on the team level, which is great for independence. But now we are moving into cross-functional, larger scale development projects. So we actually want all the data to be in the same place. So yeah, poor quality and silos are probably the biggest obstacles today.
So essentially, without data discipline, and when we have silos, everything else collapses.
Yes. And it's always a trade-off, right? Because we're not going to move into AI native like from nothing to everything. It's going to be incremental process. So still most of the companies operate in more traditional ways, and that actually encouraged a certain level of silos. The really interesting question is to figure out how to balance between keeping the old systems functional, alive, and productive while gradually moving over to the new ones.
And do we know how to do it?
Actually, we do. That's actually the whole story of the book. And the thing is that I didn't invent those things. Those things exist, but how to run a transformation is a solved problem. A lot of books, a lot of business books and process books are written about that. And the general idea is that when you have something transformational, which is entirely new product line or technology that is transformational in the sense that it changes the entire organization or other transformational things, you never go all the way in. You never adopt it, just force everyone to adopt it, because that doesn't work. Because the first thing you need to do is learn about it and understand how it works. So you need some knowledge about it. Then you need to make sure that this technology actually solves your problems. And then you need to gradually transition from old one to the new one without disrupting the business. So this process is actually fairly well defined. And this is exactly what we're talking in the book about, that you always run a small innovative team, sort of Horizon 3. There's this model from McKinsey, old model, about 3 horizons. So Horizon 1 is something you do today. Horizon 2 is something you're going to do in a year or so from now, 2 years. And Horizon 3 is long-term development. So you always run some sort of skunk works teams or some innovation teams that are researching future technologies to learn how they work. Then once you see that this technology like AI is a good fit for you because you have a good business case, then you start building a small MVP with a small team, and then gradually transition other teams from the old technologies to the new one and gradually decommission the old ones. This gradual process is the only way to succeed with transformation.
I think that Horizon 3 is something that at least medium and small enterprises always overlook, or at least very often.
It is true because every company is born in Horizon 3 by definition, right? Because when a company starts, they don't know what they're doing. They're researching but as you grow, it's important to get to Horizon 1 to actually scale up and sell things successfully. So that is by definition Horizon 1. And many companies forget to keep this innovation going. A lot of them solve it by acquiring startups, which is also a fair way of doing it. But generally, a successful company dedicates resources to all 3 horizons. And the other problem is that you cannot try Horizon 3 teams the same way you run your operations, because Horizon 3 is innovation. So they need freedom. They need, go and do whatever you like, but they work in a sandbox environment that is not affecting the main business. So this sort of knowing how to run each one of those initiatives is essential leadership skill.
And actually, now I would like to talk about leadership requirements. So you've mentioned that leaders need a different mindset for AI native organizations. So what leadership principles matter most during this transition?
So there are 2 key elements to any transformation. The first one is transformation champion. So a person who will lead the transformation, who will make sure that everyone is actually committed and energized. This is typically not a top leader. It's typically a middle manager that is super committed and driven. In every successful transformation we have seen, there was always this kind of champion that brought the innovation in and fought for it for years until it's successful. On the more executive leadership, there has to be executive commitment. So a company says, okay, this is something we're going to do. For example, AI, we decided that this is the next thing and we are committed to it and we are going to support it. We are going to allocate correct funding to it. We're going to allocate time, resources. We're going to, in the beginning at least, shield the teams from the operational concerns. We're going to make sure that this is successful because transformation process is very painful. It's scary, it's difficult, there's a lot of challenges involved. And for that reason, a successful transformation in a company has to be short and efficient. And for that, it requires a person who knows how to go through it, executive support, correct funding, and full commitment. And it's also not allowed to do 2 of them in the same time because it never works out at the end.
So it's a hard nut to crack, but at the end of the day, it's a decisive factor in success or failure of the company.
Absolutely, because the alternative is not doing it, meaning your competitors will do it for you, and then you will be in trouble. Or getting it halfway And then even now, you see a lot of cloud native companies that sort of went through transformation, but never finished it. So they have Kubernetes and cloud and all kind of things, but none of it is actually properly functional. Yeah. So this is a terrible result. So you spend all these years fighting for transforming to new technologies, but never really adopted or got benefits from them. So that's lose-lose.
Now, I'd like to talk about environmental and efficiency implications. So, AI workloads are growing rapidly and have real energy and efficiency implications, as we know. Some companies even build nuclear power plants at the moment. So, how do you see AI native architectures helping organizations reduce waste, optimize systems, or operate more sustainably?
So this is sort of going back to the reason we started the company, and the way we thought about solving this issue in the beginning was about incremental optimization. I think it's still very important that every company would reduce just waste, because why would you have waste? Like, there's no good thing in waste, but it costs effort. So it's very difficult to invest in it because most companies focus on innovation more than optimization. So over time, I switched into thinking that actually the solution is not incremental optimization, innovation. So creating new tools that will solve the problem by effectively eliminating it. And there are all kind of examples of that. Just this week, I was reading about data centers in the space. Sounds crazy, but it's not too crazy, because SpaceX actually sounds like doing or aiming to do exactly that. So they have communication satellites, and they're apparently aiming to create to IPO and start building data centers in the space, which actually, if you think about this, it's a very efficient and cheap way to get energy and reduce cooling costs and all kind of other things. I don't know if that particular technology is what's going to save us. But again, investing into new technologies, like definitely new ways of produce energy that is greener and cheaper, this is what's important now. And if we go towards AI creates a lot of pressure on energy sources, and it demands massive amount of space for data centers. And we can try to reduce the energy consumption by 10 or 20% or 30%. It's not going to save us. What we really need is those data centers to be consuming 100% green energy that doesn't create any emissions at all. And for that, we have to innovate forward. We have to create potentially nuclear energy, or transition entirely to solar, or put the data centers in a space, or whatever other crazy things that are going to happen. So in this sense, AI, on one side, it generates the pressure, which is actually creates a lot more incentives to resolve it. But it also helps us to create new innovative solutions, like creating new energy sources, or removing carbon emission from the atmosphere or from oceans. So there is a bit of a balance here, is that either you focus on eliminating emissions or other things from the existing technologies, which is really hard, or you're focusing on creating new ones to remove the reason, to remove basically the issue in more drastic way. So I personally believe more in innovation forward. That was a bit too long of an answer, but hopefully it comes across.
These were great insights because companies often forget that efficiency is both cost and sustainability win. So at the end of the day, win-win for them.
And this is something companies should do anyway, right? Because this was our assumption starting with Sync, is that cost is a good proximity to emissions, to sustainability, right? If you reduce cost, you almost automatically reduce emissions, especially in the cloud. Like, the best way to reduce costs in the cloud is reduce number of hardware you are using. Now, it's not 100% correct, because there are all kind of tricks around that. But generally speaking, if you're only using 20% of your hardware, but paying for 100%, and you create, like, optimize and only use exactly as much as you need, it's pretty crazy not to do it. Right? And if we do it, then it buys us a bit more time to invest in new technologies and save the world.
Now, let's talk about real world transformation patterns. So, from your experience with early adopters, what patterns do you see among the organizations that execute AI native transformation successfully?
So the first thing is, and already said it earlier, is that the first most important thing that teams can do is to create this kind of innovation teams. Some call them skunk works based on Lockheed Martin long past story. But basically, an independent team that is not supposed to deliver anything to customers or create something immediately sellable, but their goal is to make sure that the company is exposed to new technologies and understands innovation and understands the possibilities for potential transformation. So this kind of pioneering mode or skunk work teams are essential to identify the opportunities. Without them, most companies just miss the opportunities and never execute on them, or execute only based on pressure from the market, which is often too late. Or now, once the opportunities are identified, it's important to do it step by step, so gradual transformation and not all in. And the other thing is, specifically for AI, maybe the biggest challenge we're seeing right now is that there's still very high level of AI illiteracy. So people don't really know what's going on. And we as humans, we tend to fear the things we don't know. So there's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of fear that humans will be replaced. Every time I'm talking about AI in a development environment, developers always ask, so are we going to be replaced? And the answer is probably not. Maybe partially in a way. Some of the work developers do will be replaced by machines, but the developers will not be replaced. Their work will change. And the best way to fight this kind of fears is by education and experimentation. And this is, if I need to recommend to especially large enterprise, one most important thing they can do right now is not to start AI native transformation, but to start training the staff on AI, buy some licenses and push them to experiment with, and define bunch of experiments and start just trial and error. Something that is not even included in products for customers, even if it's internal for experimentation. But this kind of hands-on experimentation and learning dramatically reduces the fear of adoption of new technologies. And this is the best thing a company can do today, unless it's already more advanced and already past that stage.
And going back to this innovation team, in your view, should it replace, for example, research and development team? Should it work together, or should it be a part of research and development team?
So the way we see it is that there are two different types of research and development, right? So there's an immediate incremental research. For example, you have, let's say, web application or some SaaS application, and you need to change a button, or you need to create some new connection to a new integration with some other system. So there's a lot of incremental improvements. Some of them are very valuable. Some of them are very important. But they're incremental in the sense that they are not touching massive parts of the system. They are not transformational. They are not big. They are not disruptive. Those changes happen within the context of normal operations and normal product development and maintenance. They are governed by the rules of operational efficiency. So you need to do them in efficient and cheapest way. They need to be high quality. There are particular ways to manage incremental innovation. Disruptive innovation is entirely different thing. It's a crazy experimentation. You never can promise anything. So that needs to be managed in an entirely different way. Those people need full freedom. They only need to know what are the boundaries. But on the other side, they are not allowed to touch real products because they can easily affect them or destroy the quality. And so this separation is essential. And I think most companies don't have this separation. So if you run disruptive innovation in an operational way, then you reduce innovation. But if you run operations or incremental innovation under skunk works, then you create crazy environment and hero culture and all kind of bad other things.
Thank you very much for this clarification. Now I'd like to talk about risk management and governance. So, as we know, AI introduces new risks related to model behavior, security, compliance, and system fragility. So, how do you think enterprises think about governance in an AI native landscape?
First, most important thing is that we can do today is basically follow the principle of human in the loop. So today I have a Tesla car, right? It has self-driving capabilities, but in Europe, it's not allowed. So basically it's human's responsibility. The car still drives on its own, but you need to keep the hand on the wheel, on the steering wheel. I think this is sort of the first step. And the main reason for it is because we don't have confidence in technology. So basically, we are fully responsible for the outcome. There is a bit of a challenge with that because to be fully responsible, we need to actually understand what AI is doing. And it's often very difficult because it behaves in non-human way and it's much faster than us. So in certain circumstances, what you see in development process, a lot of developers try to understand what AI did, but they can't. So they automatically approve the change and it goes in, but they don't really know what's going on. So human in the loop, the ability to understand of what's actually going on, those are essential in the beginning of the journey. Explainability is the term. Um, Otherwise, there is a lot of new rules, especially in EU. There's a lot of rules about AI implementation. I'm not really sure how effective are they because they're also to a certain extent reduce the innovation because every rule automatically reduces the innovation, but I guess we have to have them. Sort of an open question where the boundaries of innovation lie. But at the end, those two principles of explainability and human in the loop is the first way of dealing with the risks of AI. Then you have to manage the data in the right way. This is one of the, I mean, there are sort of two main risks in AI. One is losing the data or data leaks and stuff like that. Another one, giving AI too much responsibilities to actually take actions. Both are risky. And I think there's still a lot of it is still being developed and researched. So I would say companies that only start in this transformation should be very careful and an experiment in a separate sandbox where the risks are much lower. And only when they feel confidence and they understand what they are doing, only then move to larger scale.
And in the perfect world, I think the governance would move as fast as the technology. That would be way easier for companies.
I don't think we will ever be in that perfect world.
Probably not. Utopia.
It is. And I think governments are, I mean, philosophically speaking, one day governments could become faster. But practically speaking, today, they are not. So that's why, for example, the same self-driving car drives on its own in US, but not in Europe. So you have differences in governance.
And for companies that want to move towards AI native over the next 12 months, well, 1 year, what are the first concrete steps they should take before touching any technology?
So first, education, definitely by far the most important thing. So any sort of education and internal experimentation is the most important thing because it reduces fear and allows people to have new ideas. Putting in place the skunk works teams for innovation, much more systematic innovation with the goal to find the right business case for transformation. Because a lot of companies also make a mistake of just adopting new technologies because it's fancy and everyone is doing it. You really need to find something that you can do within your own environment. Yeah, education, skunk works, and definitely looking into data and trying to make sure that you actually have it in the right way. I think those are three enablers that will create first a workforce that is open for this, the ideas and business cases to identify that actually will drive the transformation, And the data is the biggest enabler.
That's a very actionable way to put it. So let's hope that companies will actually follow that 3-point checklist. Okay. Yeah. So before we wrap up, is there anything important about AI native transformation that we didn't touch on but should have?
I think what my sort of biggest observation of the years of doing transformations of different types is that um, there are companies, the most successful companies never do transformations. What they do is that they're just gradually changing all the time. Like they always have this sort of natural way of incrementally adapting themselves to the new environment. So you will find a lot of companies that they adopted AI or AI native already to a very significant extent without actually running any transformation program, because they have this ability to learn and change as a mechanism that is embedded in their governance, in their structure. And on the other side, you have a bunch of companies that never stop transforming, but never achieving any results. So they have a lot of bureaucracy around it. You have transformation leaders, transformation VPs, transformation this and that. They have a bunch of managers all the time doing agile transformation, DevOps transformation, digital transformation, but never actually achieving the goals without even understanding why they are doing it. So I think this is sort of my biggest observation over the years is that ability to change and adjust yourself and adopt any crazy piece of technology and any dramatic changes in the market is essential capability of a business. Companies can learn it. They can also do it in more intentional way, but the best ones, they just do it without intention, sort of intuitively.
That's quite logical because I think that transformation can be disruptive, at least pose some disruptiveness. The evolution you mentioned is a continuous process, just like we can observe in nature.
I think that that's exactly the point. And there's the book, our book is called The Waves of Innovation, from cloud native to AI native, the next wave of innovation. So the next wave is coming for sure. It's not, the AI is not the last wave of innovation. It's just another thing. It's maybe bigger than previous ones, but also internet was big one. And it also had similar behavior. It expanded like crazy. Then there was a bit of bubble burst, but it didn't go away. It's just, we tend to over, uh, over, uh, uh, sort of think that the innovation is bigger than it is short term, but underestimate its impact on the long term. So the same happened with internet. We thought internet will dominate the world within 2 or 3 years, but in reality, it took 15 years. So when the bubble burst, there was this idea that internet is useless and no one cares. But longer term, right now, everything we do is on internet. And I feel like AI is very similar in this sense. We are probably approaching this small or medium-sized bubble burst when a lot of people will say it's useless and it doesn't give us the value we expected. But longer term, 10 years or 15 years from now, there will be nothing that is not AI driven.
I couldn't agree more. Pini, thank you very much for sharing your insights. Many organizations are navigate AI adoption right now, and your work helps separate structured transformation from improvised experimentation.
Thank you for the invite and great questions. And I hope somebody will learn something from it.
I hope that too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.